But one person, he created an Erev Ben Hashmashot, and the Erev was eaten up at night. And one person, he created the Erev before Ben Hashmashot, and one Erev was eaten up during Ben Hashmashot. So we said yesterday that both, it works in both cases. I don't know if we read the Gemara inside, just um, let's look at the language of the Gemara. The Gemara says, this is on 34, 34a, A3, on the right side of Amarava. We're going to go back to that point just to read it inside the Gemara. Here we'll hear the holy words of the Gemara. Amarava, Amar Lishnayim. He said, two people said to him, Save Arev Aleinu, go make an Erev for us. Le'echad Erev Alav Mibod Yom. For one of them, he made the Erev before the Shabbat. He put the food, the two meals. Good to see you, Nathan. Put the two meals. He placed the two meals by, let's say, certain amount of amot outside the city. Let's say 1,900 amot outside the city, in order to extend the ability that he could walk 2,000 amot from that spot. And so he did it the right way. He put it there before Shabbat. That's when you're supposed to l'chatchila place the eruv. And the other person, eruv alav ben hashmashot, he put the eruv not at the time he was supposed to, but he did it at a time, but it was still not dark. It was twilight. He placed the eruv, he placed the food. And then the Gemara says, the one that he made the eruv before Shabbat, nechal eruv ben hashmashot. That eruv, that food, was eaten during twilight, before dark. And we said the rule is that the food that you place, in order for the eruv to chumim, when you place the food outside the city to give you a certain further distance to walk, that food has to be there at the time the Shabbat enters. And if the food was not there by the time the Shabbat entered, the eruv that's not called your residence. And here, good morning, good to see you. So zeh she'eruv l'vod yom nechol eruvo ben hashmashot. His eruv was consumed, was gone, but already when twilight came. The zeh she'eruv ben hashmashot, and the one that he made the eruv ben hashmashot, morning Simon, made the eruv in the afternoon, in twilight, nechol eruv mechashecha. His eruv got consumed at night. So the question here is, what is ben hashmashot? If ben hashmashot is nighttime, so when they made the eruv before ben hashmashot and the night came, so the eruv was still here. If ben hashmashot is daytime, so then we would say then the eruv it's not here. So we say shneim kona eruv. The Gemara says both cases the eruv works. So the Gemara says manavshach. The Gemara says how could that be? Simon, we're on 34a3. If twilight is considered daytime, so then batra liknei. The second eruv should work. Meaning the guy who made the eruv twilight. If twilight is considered day, so if he placed the food there during twilight, that means he did it right. He did it before Shabbat. Technically, it would be like he did it before Shabbat, even though he was supposed to have done it while it was still light outside. But if we consider Ben Hashmashot as daytime, so then Batra Likne, that second case where it got consumed at night, but it was placed by Ben Hashmashot should work. Should be a good eruv, and kama lo likne. But the first case, where he placed it in the afternoon and then it got consumed twilight. If twilight is considered daytime, so it wasn't here when Shabbat entered. And if twilight is considered nighttime, so if twilight is considered nighttime, so then kama likne. So in the first case, it should be good. Because the first case was he placed it in the afternoon and then it was consumed at that twilight. If twilight is night, then that's fine. It was here when Shabbat entered. And Batelo Likni. And then the second case should not work. So how could you say both works? So the Gemara says what Nathan said yesterday. Bein Hashmashot Sveikahu. And Bein Hashmashot is a Safek, v'sveika d'Rabbana l'kula. Meaning, it's a question whether Bein Hashmashot has the status of night, has the status of day. And the chidush that the Gemara is saying here is that, meaning we always know Sveika D'Rabbanan is the Kula. But I presume the chidush here is that even when we're going to apply the Safed D'Rabbanan, even when it's going to be contradictory, then in one place you can consider it as night, and one place you can consider the Bein Hashmashot as day. Okay, now we're in a new piece, just on 34A4. Simon, we got 34A4. That's the 34A4. V'amar Rava. Rava says the following. Lima omru im tomnin. Got it? 34A4. It's about 3 lines from the top, 4 lines top. Lima omrim im tomnin b'dava she'ena mosef hevel. B'chashecha. There's a halacha in Shabbat that once it becomes dark, you can't insulate, you can't wrap a food on all 4 sides and cover a food, meaning take a pot, let's say a pot that was taken off the fire, and to wrap that pot with a towel on Shabbat, you can't do that. You can't wrap a pot on Shabbat with a towel on all 4 sides to insulate, to keep the heat in the pot. You want to wrap it on 3 sides? You can wrap it on 3 sides, no problem. Maybe even 3.5 sides. Why? So that's the Gemara's question. What's the problem? I'm not adding heat. I'm not cooking. I'm just keeping what was already done. What was already cooked, right? What am I doing? What am I doing wrong? That's the Gemara's question. Is that clear? I'm taking a towel. Towel sounds very pirate, sounds very, innocent. What's wrong? I'm taking a towel, I'm wrapping it in the towel all the way. So what's the problem? Again, like I said, if it's not wrapped all the way, you leave some side open, that's not a problem. That's not called insulating. That's not insulating. Yes, maybe you helped a certain amount, but that's not where the rabbis made the decree. So what's the issue? So the Gemara says the reason is Shema Yatiach. Maybe you're going to come to cook. How are you going to come to cook? What will be that situation? Let's say you come, it's Friday night, right? And you go ahead, and let's say the pot was taken off before Shabbat. Let's say the pot was taken off right before Shabbat, and you're going to go ahead and you're going to want to keep the food hot. You want to keep it hot, and then you come and you see that the pot it's not so hot. I thought I was just going to wrap it in the towel, and I'll be good. I'll be good to keep it hot for when I'm going to have the food a little later in the evening. But when I see that it's cold, I might come to first put it back on the fire in order to heat it up, because then I will insulate it wrap it with the towel. So as a result of that, what'd you say? Does it?
He knows it's Shabbat. He
knows it's
for Shabbat. He knows when Shabbat is coming in.
Why would he make?
After it's wrapped, he's going to put.
Right. But very good. Very good. So the concern is, Simon, that maybe the person will. Is it possible that he'll forget? He'll forget.
What is the difference between wrapping 3 sides and wrapping 4 sides? The fact is remembering or forgetting.
Because that's not, because he's not, most probably when you're going to wrap, if you're wrapping on 3 sides, it's not really he's not really coming to do a very strong job of insulating, and therefore he's not trying to keep it so hot. So maybe I presume there's less of a concern that he's going to go ahead and reheat it.
Almost as though if you leave part of it exposed and it doesn't stay as hot, you'll have more motivation to try and put it on the fire.
But if you're looking to insulate, see, when you're looking to insulate, then we're concerned that maybe we'll put it back on the fire. According to this is according to this understanding. But if you're not looking to really insulate, meaning, because let's say you're not looking to put it on all 4 sides, so therefore we're not as concerned. You're not looking you're not looking to really keep the heat in a very strong way when you're only looking to put it on three sides. So therefore, maybe there's less of a concern that you're going to come to insulate it. This is one approach. Maybe we'll have to look into other. Maybe Simon, I'll look into other approaches how to, But this is one approach. This is Rashi's approach in the in the Gemara of what the concern might be. So the Gemara says, I presume, Simon, the issue is not that intentionally with Shabbat, but sometimes when you're dealing with food and you're dealing with doing something to keep some heat, in the busyness of that, in the heat of the moment, very nice pun, you might just come to just put it back on the fire. But you're not, what happened? It was like a little lapse in thinking about.
It might seem like they're giving them no credit for nothing.
Okay, Simon, first I have to remember another thing, Simon. When the rabbis make it a decree, they're not only dealing with Simon Simon-Tov, they're dealing with other people that are on top of might not be at the top of their game as you. They're dealing with the average Jew throughout the whole world, the whole Jewish community, when they have to be concerned to protect everybody. So you, Simon, maybe you're right. I don't think you have to worry about you and Ravad Yosef or about Sayyidina Bashol. I don't think you have to worry about. In the same sense. See that? How do you like that? I'm the one who said it, and he's just recognizing it. Nathan's recognizing it. But so he's seconding the motion. So you hear what I'm saying, Simon? So to you, what are you worried about? What's been a concern? I'm going to go ahead and forget. But like Nathan said, the heat of the moment, when you're busy doing something, when you're busy, meaning it's a big deal to me. I want to keep this hot. And you know what? That's what and it's important to me to keep this hot. That's why I want to insulate it.
The not wrapping of the last side is your siman, is your reminder that it's Shabbat and not to put it on the flesh.
Okay, but I'm not sure if it's working because of that, or it's working because it's showing you're not so zealous about the heat so much. So therefore, that's needs to look into that as well. But this is one approach of what the issue is, of why the rabbis were here. The rabbis are here to protect. The rabbis are very concerned. Listen, when it comes to food, people get a little, they forget, food is a very important thing. The heat of the food is very important to people. And people might get just that average person who might not be as on top of his game, who's coming to insulate his food Friday night, he might come to just put it back on the fire if he finds it cold. And therefore, he would unintentionally
putting it back on the fire because he doesn't have a blech.
Let's say he doesn't have a blech. Now, so the Gemara says, Amalei Abaye. Abaye says, if that's the case, during twilight, we should also make a gzera, because our Mishnah stated that if it's twilight, if it's after sunset, before it's dark, that in-between time, which is not known to us, whether is it night, is it day and night, during that time period. So the Mishnah stated a leniency. The Mishnah stated, Tomnin et achamin. We have an allowance to insulate.
You have the steka of, is insulating really a problem? And you have the steka of twilight. So if you have a sveka and a sveka, that's probably why they allow you to insulate during twilight.
Yeah, but insulating, we're saying in general, we're saying insulating is the rabbis make insulating is a gezerah, right? Insulating is it is a problem if you're insulating on the Shabbat. So the question, would you want to say now? So maybe what Nathan is saying, listen, it's a rabbinic law to not to insulate on Shabbat. So you could ask the question. So why don't we just go with that old rule, suffix rabbanan? We just go to suffix a doubt in rabbinic law is we're lenient, but we go to kula.
And Twilight is cooler, so therefore you really can't.
Oh, twilight is suffix. It's not. It's right.
One is cooler, one's suffix, but then during suffix you have coolers.
Right. So Nathan is asking. So why should we be? What's the? It should be obvious. You should be able to insulate during the twilight zone because it's a possible rabbinic violation, and it's possibly I might be violating rabbinic law if it's considered Shabbat at this twilight zone and I'm insulating. I'm violating rabbinic law. If it's not Shabbat because twilight is still considered day, then I'm not violating rabbinic law. So if it's and we have a general rule, a safek in a rabbinic law, you're lenient. Just like we just said about the Erev works during if the Erev, we just had a whole story. So Rashi points out, or someone points out, that there are things in the Mishnah that are a rabbinic issue and we're still strict. Because we said you can't take off maaser ben hashmashot, right? Ein masrin et avadai. So there were certain things that the rabbis were strict, even in that twilight zone, even if the whole issue is a rabbinic issue. So they didn't apply, could be because of the stringency of Shabbat. They were more strict than in certain situations. And they felt most probably you could have done, maybe they didn't feel the need to be lenient. Like the Erev Tchumim, what we just spoke about a minute ago, which we said Safek Rabbanan L'Kula, they're going to be lenient when it's a doubt in rabbinic law. We also have a law that the only time you do Erev Tchumim works if you're doing it for Dvar Mitzvah. Meaning, so that concept that you're placing food, let's say, outside the city within 2,000 amot, because you want to get an opportunity to walk an additional 2,000 amot. So you're going to put the food before Shabbat, 1,900 amot, let's say, outside the city, and therefore you could go 2,000 from the place where you put the food. But the purpose of that was because you're going to go visit your rabbi, you're going to visit someone who was sick, or you're going to do something of mitzvah. So there maybe the rabbis were more lenient. They said when it's ben hashmashot, we have, we could be more lenient in, because the Gemara said regarding it said regarding Erev Chatzerot. So they were lenient by Erev Chatzerot, and they were lenient by this case of Tchumim, meaning to say, what do I mean? Let me explain what I mean to say. We said the Gemara made a distinction between Erev Chatzerot, where you want to give an allowance to carry from your house to the courtyard, different than Erev Tchumim, when you're making the ability to walk further. The Gemara said that you should not place lechatchila an Erev, the food, in order to enable you to walk more than 2,000, another additional 2,000 amot. You should not do that. You should not place it during twilight. But if you did place it during twilight, we said it does take effect. But Erev Chatzerot, they were more lenient. They said you could actually place it during twilight. So therefore we maybe also why we said Safek Rabbanan L'Kula by the case of Erev Tchumim was because once you did place it, or let's say or give the other case. You placed it before Shabbat, the Erev Tchumim, and then comes twilight. And the rabbis were lenient over there, and they said, maybe we'll consider twilight as night, and if the Erev got eaten up during twilight, since twilight came and was already here, your Erev is good. So, but there are certain circumstances that the rabbis were lenient on Safek Rabbanan, and there were certain circumstances the rabbis were strict. They said you can't dip utensils in the mikvah when it's twilight. Utensils with tameh, you can't dip when it's ein matril es hakelim, ein ma'asrin es havadai. Those are rabbinic laws. So it's not, it seems that the rabbis did not always apply this rule when you have a safek in a derabanan to be lenient, right? That's why they allowed you to make the erev chatzerot ben hashmashot. They didn't allow you erev tchumim ben hashmashot, right? So the Gemara. So now the Gemara is the question. Back to our Gemara. Amalei Abaye. Abaye says, Ihachi, if you're afraid about that, and that right, if you're afraid that maybe going to come that when you're insulating, you're telling me you can't insulate once it's Shabbat, you can't insulate because we're afraid. You'll find it cold, and you might come to put it back on the fire, and then for the purpose of insulating it, then insulate it. So therefore, you're coming to cook. We should also make that gzera ben hashmashot. We should be afraid that if you go ahead and insulate it, if we allow you to insulate it ben hashmashot, and we do allow you to insulate, to wrap it in the towel during twilight, why don't we make the same gzera? You might come to go ahead and find it cold, and then you might put it back on the fire. If you put it back on the fire, that will be a biblical violation, Nathan. So therefore, or possible biblical violation, because it's ben hashmashot, it's twilight. So why don't we make and Rashi says, and the Tana of our Mishnah holds that we do make rabbinic law, rabbinic gzera. Right. I mean, what's that? I don't know, offense. Or they make, I want to say offenses, that they make the gzera on a rabbinic issue during a ben hashmashot time. That the rabbi, morning Mars, that the Tana of our Mishnah holds that a thing that its prohibition is only based from the rabbis. There's no Torah prohibition about the item. Taking off types on Shabbat is not a Torah prohibition. It's a rabbinic issue. You can't take off types on Shabbat. Yet the rabbi said, even on a rabbinic issue, if I'm in a doubtful time of ben hashmashot, if I'm during twilight, the rabbi said we're going to be strict. We're not going to allow you to go ahead and take off the types. We're not going to allow you to go ahead and dip it in the mikveh. So we see that the rabbis were strict on rabbinic law when you're in that twilight zone. I won't call it rabbinic on rabbinic, because rabbinic on rabbinic would be some. But this is not rabbinic. Twilight zone is not a rabbinic. It's a question of what it is, right? It's not a. It's a suffix, not a rabbinic, right? Exactly. So therefore, the Gemara's question is, why don't we make a Morris? The Gemara is asking a question: why do we allow you to wrap the pot when it's off the fire, wrap it in a towel during twilight? Why do we allow that? We should make a gezerah. We should make the same concern that we have at night. You might find it's cold. You might put it back on the fire. So the Gemara answers, Amalei, stam k'deirot rotchotein. Because when you're dealing with twilight time, the average pot during twilight is still very hot because you had cooked it up before Shabbat, and now it's hot. So we're not afraid that you're going to find, we're not so concerned that you're going to find it cooled off, and therefore you're going to go ahead and put it back on the fire. So therefore, once you go further, once you get into the nighttime, right? Twilight, depending how long twilight is, how long we'll see in the Gemara, how long is this duration of twilight? What we call twilight today could be 45, 50 minutes. From the sunset till it's dark. Some might consider a little less than that. The time until Shabbat is over. From the time the sun sets till the Shabbat is over, that's called twilight. Right, Simon? What that's called ben hashmashot. Between the days is between sunset and the stars come out and when Shabbat is over. So therefore, we're not so concerned that you're going to find it cold and therefore you're going to put it back on the fire. And therefore we say, if it's twilight, if it's bein hashmashot, you could wrap the pot, took it off the fire, it was taken off the fire, you could wrap it in the towel. Towel is not something that adds heat. Towel just contains what you got. You could do that during the twilight, but you can't do that once it's dark. Is that clear, Ezra? So the Gemara says, Omar Rava. Now we're turning the page. Neima Omru, Rav Ein Tomnim Midova Hamosef Hevel. We have a law that you can't insulate with on even before on with something that adds heat. A material that adds heat, you can't insulate even from before Shabbat. That means before Shabbat, if I'm going to go ahead and take an item, if I'm going to take, let's say, ash gives off heat. So I'm not wrapping it in a towel. If I want to wrap it in hot ash before Shabbat, even though it's before Shabbat, I'm not doing anything on Shabbat. I'm doing it before Shabbat. The rabbis say I can't insulate with something before Shabbat that adds heat. So again, so let's make it clear. Say it again. No, the Gemara say something else. What's the reason? Again, there's a difference between a towel and hot ash. A towel doesn't add heat.
Therefore, a towel and a hot towel.
Very good. An average towel, non-heated towel, is not a problem before Shabbat. You know what? It's a summertime. You want to keep the kitchen. You don't want the kitchen to get so hot. Before Shabbat, you took off the pot of soup and you just wrapped off the fire and you wrapped it in the towel before Shabbat. You're good because the towel does not add heat, and you wrapped it before Shabbat. You didn't wrap it on Shabbat. You can't on Shabbat itself. You can't wrap the pot with a towel all the way on the
What's the
Shabbat
story
itself.
about three sides? I mean, why would
But
you
on
have to?
three sides you could on Shabbat itself because that's not called. That's
But
not an
but you
act.
can wrap it fully before Shabbat.
Before Shabbat, you can wrap the pot fully. Before Shabbat, exactly. You can wrap it fully. You put it on the counter, wherever you put it before Shabbat. You wrapped it in the, you're getting it ready for the sukkah, whatever it was. You could do that. You could do that. Now,
The clothes. Yeah. The cloth, yeah. Hmm. Yeah.
Ralph, I'm sorry for the issue with
You froze and then you came off.
yeah. I'm sorry with the issue with the computer. We're back.
Okay, I thought it was my phone.
No. So this is one way to learn the Gemara, that there is no time between day and night. It's always either day or it's always either night.
Mm.
But this duration, this whole time period of Bein Hashmashot, this window of time between I mean, we're gonna see later in the Gemara maybe other opinions about this, but at least this bright saying, we'll have to, because there's an opinion that says that it's a blink of an eye, so I would think it's a blink of an eye, but that blink of an eye, what is that? One part of that might be day, and one part of that blink might be night, right? But there is an opinion that actually we'll see how they explain this Gemara. See, I think the Art Scroll took a position in the English version, how they wanted to say that, let's okay, maybe we'll just say it this way. We'll see more tomorrow on this, not tomorrow, Monday. Well, no, tomorrow's Friday, right? So I think today's already Friday. Yeah, tomorrow, yeah. So the Gemara says we have three possibilities. Safek min hayom umin halayla. This twilight zone could have both day and night in it. Safek kula min hayom. It could be totally day, right? This whole twilight zone could be day, and when the stars come out, that's when it's night. And Safek kula min halayla. The whole twilight could be night, right? You could say sunset is night. It's sunset might be night. Sunset might be still day until it gets actually dark, totally dark. It might be day, or part of that time period is day, and part of that time period eventually there's a part that it turns to night. So the Gemara says, "Matilin oto lechomer." We're gonna have to be strict. Shnei hayamim. We're gonna be strict as if it has in it both day and both night. And the Gemara is going to discuss this, because if you're going to be strict about that, maybe it's day, right? The easy thing is I can't go ahead and do work Saturday night. And if I did work Saturday night between twilight, I would have to bring a korban, because asham, a certain type of korban, because maybe asham tolui, maybe I violated the Shabbat. And if I did work Friday between sunset and night, I'd also have to bring a korban, because again, maybe it's nighttime. If I did it Friday between sunset and night, maybe it's considered night, and therefore I violated Shabbat. If I did it Saturday, if a guy did malacha Saturday at twilight, you would have to say maybe it's day, and therefore he has to bring an offering. So you have to consider it. You have to take the stringencies of day and of night, and then the Gemara will elaborate more on it, because look at the Rashi. Rashi says there are three sveikot here, and therefore we're going to give him the stringency of both days. And the Gemara is going to ask, what does it mean you have the strictness of both? The stringency of both. You could understand, I could say it's either, I consider a day, I would have to bring the korban if I did the malacha, if I did the work Saturday twilight. If I want to consider it night, I would have to go ahead and if I did the work Friday between sunset and night. What does it mean? I will also consider it as if it's both days. It's night and day simultaneously. So that we're gonna see, we'll see more tomorrow. Now, tomorrow, what is people's time tomorrow?
Could be the same thing.
What works, but does it work for everybody the same time? How does it work for? It works for you same time, 7:45 works? Okay, Ralph, 7:45 works tomorrow?
Yeah, I think so. Rabbi, this is volume 3 here. What do I need? Volume 4?
Yeah, yes, thank you. Yeah, volume 4, right, correct.
Just when I'm gonna come next week, I'll just go and pick it up. I'll bring this back.
So again, that should be volume,
3.
what you sure it's 3? I
It's
think,
3 right on the side here, 3.
right, they're right. It's 3 in the number of volumes of the Talmud, but it's volume 1 in Shabbat. Meaning it's 3, meaning in the Gemaras, there are the first Gemara is Brachot. Brachot, the article has 2 volumes. So this is the set. Let's say the set has 70 something volumes, or maybe 100 80 volumes, whatever. Maybe it has 100 volumes, whatever volumes. That's number 3 in the number of volumes. You hear what I'm saying?
Mhm.
So it'd be 4th volume, but usually when we order it, we're going to order it. It's going to be, we're ordering Shabbat, volume 2 of Shabbat. You get what I'm
Okay.
saying?
Okay,
Okay. Very
so
good.
let's say volume 2. Okay, I'll have to find it. Maybe you can
Yeah,
put a little post-it note on my name on it.
Yes, exactly. Okay, have a great day, Ralph.
It's a
8:30 is upstairs. Yes, good morning.